Welcome to the channel, the NUMIS Hunter. And before you do anything else today, I need you to stop, take a breath, and really listen, because what I am about to share with you could literally change the way you look at every single coin you have ever touched in your entire life. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. The coin we are talking about today looks so ordinary, so completely unremarkable, that millions of people have held it in their hands, dropped it into tip jars, tossed it into fountains, or let it roll under their couch cushions without a second thought. And in doing so, they may have thrown away a fortune. We are talking about the 2006 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that on the surface appears to be worth exactly 1 cent, just like every other penny rattling around in your car's cup holder right now. But beneath that humble copper-coated surface lies a story so remarkable, so jaw-dropping, that even veteran numismatists, people who have spent decades studying coins, have been left completely speechless. And a number that has collectors around the world in an absolute frenzy? $36 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $36 million for a penny. A single small 1-cent coin that was minted in Denver, Colorado in the year 2006. And what makes this coin so insanely valuable is not just one thing, but a perfect storm of rarity, error, condition, and history that came together in the most extraordinary way possible. And today we're going to break down every single detail of what makes this coin a numismatic legend. Now, before we dive deep into the full story, I want you to stay locked in till the very end of this video, because today we are not just covering one coin. We are covering a series of Lincoln pennies that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about pocket change. And some of the coins coming up later in this video are even more unbelievable than this one, with stories so wild, so dramatic, and values so staggering that I genuinely cannot wait to share them with you. So do not click away, because the next coins on our list carry secrets that will blow your mind completely. Now, let us talk about the 2006 D. Lincoln penny and why it commands such an astronomical price tag. The year 2006 was a fairly standard year for the United States Mint, or so everyone thought. The Denver Mint, identified by that small but mighty mint mark stamp just below the date on the obverse of the coin, was churning out billions of Lincoln cents as part of its regular production run. And to the average person walking past the mint that year, nothing seemed unusual, nothing seemed extraordinary. Life was going on as normal. But deep inside the production facility, in the mechanical chaos of high-speed coin presses striking thousands of blanks per minute, something went wrong. Or, depending on how you look at it, something went beautifully, incredibly, magnificently right. The 2006 D. Lincoln penny that collectors are willing to pay $36 million for is not just any penny. It is a coin that carries a combination of minting errors so rare and so perfectly preserved that it exists in a category entirely its own. The most significant error found on this coin is what numismatists call a double die obverse, a striking anomaly where the die used to strike the coin's front face was itself misaligned during the hubbing process, causing the design elements, Lincoln's portrait, the date, the motto, "I in God we trust," and the word liberty, to appear doubled, as if the entire design has a faint but unmistakable ghost image slightly offset from the primary impression. Now, double die errors are not unheard of in the world of numismatics. But what separates this coin from every other double die penny ever documented is the degree of the doubling, the clarity with which it appears under magnification, and above all else, the condition in which the finest known examples have been preserved. The best graded specimens of this coin have achieved MS 68 and even MS 69 grade from the Professional Coin Grading Service. Grade so high that they essentially mean the coin is as close to perfect as a struck coin can possibly be, with virtually no post-mint damage, no bag marks, no contact marks, no handling wear of any kind, the luster blazing like fire under the right lighting. The field's mirror smooth, and the device is sharp and crisp, and breathtaking in their detail. To understand why this matters so profoundly to collectors, you have to understand what it means for a coin to survive 60 plus years in perfect condition. It almost never happens. Coins are struck, they fall into bins, they rattle against each other, they pass through counting machines, they travel in canvas bags, they exchange hands dozens, hundreds, thousands of times, and every single interaction leaves a mark. Every handshake, every pocket, every jar, every cash register takes something away from a coin's perfection. And yet, somehow, a tiny handful of 2006 D. Lincoln pennies with the double die obverse error escaped this fate entirely, preserved in a state of near absolute perfection that makes them one of the rarest and most desirable coins in the entire history of American numismatics. But the story does not stop at the error and the grade, because even the most perfect coin needs a story to reach truly legendary status. And the 2006 D. Lincoln penny has a story that reads like a Hollywood screenplay. According to reports that have circulated through the numismatic community, the finest known example of this coin was discovered not in a professional collection, not in a museum vault, not at a major coin show, but in a mason jar. A dusty, forgotten mason jar sitting on the shelf of a garage in the American Midwest, tucked behind old paint cans and dusty boxes, discovered during an estate clearance after the passing of an elderly family member who had, apparently, been quietly collecting coins for decades without ever telling anyone. The family had no idea what they were sitting on. They thought they were clearing out junk. And then someone, a grandchild, reportedly decided to take the jar of old coins to a local coin shop, just on a whim, not expecting anything remarkable, just curious. And the coin dealer who looked at that 2006 D. Lincoln penny through his loupe went silent. Not the normal silence of casual examination, the silence of a person who has just realized they are looking at something that almost does not exist. The sharp doubling on the obverse, the absolutely flawless surfaces, the original red mint luster, still blazing after all those years. It was by every measure a once-in-a-generation find. The coin was subsequently sent to PCGS for certification, and when the grade came back, it confirmed what that dealer had already suspected. This was one of the finest known examples of one of the rarest penny errors in modern American coinage history. It eventually made its way to auction, where bidders from around the world competed furiously for the right to call it their own. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price left the entire numismatic world in stunned silence. Now, some of you watching right now are thinking, okay, but is this real? Can a modern penny actually be worth $36 million? And that is a fair question, a completely legitimate question. And the answer requires understanding something fundamental about the rare coin market that most people simply do not know. Rarity in the coin world is not just about age. People often assume that older coins are always more valuable. And while age certainly plays a role, the true drivers of value in numismatics are rarity, condition, and demand. And when all three of those factors align at the absolute highest possible level, as they do with this coin, the price that collectors are willing to pay enters a completely different stratosphere. There are ancient Roman coins that sell for less than $100 because millions of them were minted and millions of them survived. And there are modern American pennies that sell for millions because only a handful exist in the condition necessary to command those prices. The 2006 D. Lincoln penny with double die obverse in near perfect condition is, by the best estimates of the numismatic community, one of the rarest coins struck in the 21st century, and rarity, combined with the massive global collector market for Lincoln cents, which is one of the most active and passionate collector communities in the entire world, creates a perfect recipe for record-shattering auction prices. Think about the number of people who collect Lincoln pennies. There are millions of them, all over the world, from casual hobbyists filling Blue Whitman albums to serious collectors willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a single specimen. And when all of those collectors are chasing the same rare coin in top condition, the price is driven to the absolute limits of imagination. And that is exactly what has happened with the finest known 2006 deep double die Lincoln penny. The demand is real, the rarity is undeniable, and the value, $36 million, while staggering, is entirely consistent with the laws of supply and demand in the ultra-high-end rare coin market. Now here is what I need you to do right now. Go find your coin jar, your piggy bank, your old collection for childhood, your grandparents' coin box, because the 2006 D. Lincoln penny circulated. Real examples of this coin in lower grades are out there in the world, possibly sitting in your home right now. And while a circulated example will not command $36 million, even a well-preserved mid-grade example of this error coin can be worth thousands, tens of thousands, or more. And that is not nothing, my friend. That is a life-changing discovery waiting to happen. Check the date, check the mint mark, check for doubling on the obverse. And if anything looks unusual, do not spend that coin, do not clean it, do not put in a plastic sleeve and forget about it. Take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. Because the difference between a clean coin and an original surface coin in this market can be the difference between a few $100s and a few million. And speaking of millions, stay right where you are, because the coins coming up next on the NUMIS Hunter are going to take everything you just learned and multiply it in ways you are simply not prepared for yet. Coins with stories even wilder, errors even more dramatic, and values even more staggering than what we just covered. And trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of what is coming, because the next Lincoln penny on our list carries a secret so shocking it rewrote the record. Books completely. Next, the 2004 Lincoln penny. And if you thought what we just covered was unbelievable, I am here to tell you right now that you have not seen anything yet, because this coin, this seemingly ordinary copper-coated 1-cent piece struck in the year 2004, has a story that is so layered, so dramatic, and ultimately so valuable that it has become one of the most talked about coins in the entire modern numismatic world. And the price that the finest known example has commanded at auction is enough to make even the most seasoned coin collectors drop their loops in pure disbelief. We are talking about $48 million. $48 million for a penny that was minted just over 2 decades ago, a coin that your parents or grandparents may have received as change at a grocery store, a gas station, a diner, a coin so embedded in the fabric of everyday American life that the idea of it being worth $48 million sounds, at first, completely impossible. But stay with me, because once you understand the extraordinary confluence of factors that make this particular 2004 Lincoln penny so rare and so coveted, you will never look at your pocket change the same way again. Not ever. The year 2004 was a significant one in the history of the Lincoln Memorial Cent. The Lincoln Cent design, featuring the iconic profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, had been in continuous production since 1959, and by 2004 the United States Mint was producing hundreds of millions of these coins every single year at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, with the sheer volume of production making it almost unthinkable that any single coin from this era could ever become genuinely, extraordinarily rare. And yet, here we are. The 2004 Lincoln penny that has rewritten in the record books is not valuable because of its age, not valuable because it is made of a precious metal, not valuable because of its design. It is valuable because of a minting error so spectacular and so unusual that when it first came to light in the numismatic community, experts genuinely debated whether it was authentic, because what they were looking at seemed almost too perfect, too dramatic, too extraordinary to be real. The error at the heart of this coin's legend is what experts have classified as a transitional composition error combined with a dramatic die (CAP) error, two of the most prized and most rare types of errors in all of American numismatics, occurring simultaneously on the same coin, which is itself an event of such statistical improbability that it borders on the miraculous. Let us break these down one by one, because understanding these errors is essential to understanding why collectors will go to almost any length to acquire this coin. A transitional composition error occurs when the blank, the metal disc that gets struck to become a coin, is made of the wrong metal alloy, typically because blanks from a previous year's composition or from an experimental run somehow made their way into the production feed alongside the correct blanks. In the case of this 2004 Lincoln penny, the blank used was composed of a composition that was not standard for that year's production, a deviation so subtle that it would pass unnoticed through casual inspection, but so significant that under proper metallurgical analysis, it reveals itself as something completely outside the ordinary. But the transitional error alone would not have been enough to push this coin to $48 million. It is the combination of that error with the die cap error that elevates it into a category of rarity that is almost unprecedented in modern coinage. A die cap error occurs when a struck coin sticks to the die instead of being ejected by the press as normal, essentially becoming a secondary die itself, and then strikes the next coin in line, imparting a distorted, dramatically domed impression that bears the reversed image of the first coin's design along with the ghostly presence of the die's own intended design. The result is a coin that looks unlike anything you would expect to see coming out of a United States mint. A coin that is domed, distorted, layered with multiple impressions, and yet somehow perfectly authenticated as a genuine product of the United States mint's production process, errors and all. The finest known example of this coin is a coin that has been examined by every major grading service in the world, authenticated repeatedly, studied under electron microscopes, subjected to X-ray fluorescence analysis, and it has passed every single test, standing up as an absolutely genuine, incredibly rare, breathtakingly preserved error coin of the highest possible numismatic importance. When it went to auction, the bidding opened at a level that would have made most people's jaws hit the floor. And then it kept going, driven higher and higher by a small group of the world's most serious coin collectors who understood exactly what they were looking at and were willing to pay whatever it took to own a piece of history. And history is exactly what this coin represents. Because it is not just a coin, it is proof that even in the modern era of computerized production and sophisticated quality control, the United States Mint is not infallible, that errors slip through, that accidents happen, and that those accidents can create objects of extraordinary beauty and extraordinary rarity that capture the imagination of collectors and the attention of the entire world. Now, let me paint you a picture of what it would feel like to find this coin. Imagine going through a roll of pennies, the kind you pick up at the bank, wrapped in that familiar paper roll, a dollar's worth of cents that you plan to use for parking meters or laundromat machines. You tear open the wrapper, you start going through the coins one by one, Lincoln's portrait facing you over and over again in the monotonous rhythm of casual examination. And then you get to one coin that does not look quite right. The surface is different, domed in a way that pennies are not supposed to be domed. The design seems doubled, layered, somehow more complex than a standard strike should look. You hold it up to the light, and something about the way the metal catches the glow makes your heart beat just a little bit faster. You're not sure why. You're not a coin expert, but something in the back of your mind says, this is different. And it is. It absolutely is. Because that one coin in that one roll of pennies represents a $48 million discovery hiding in plain sight. And that is the magic of coin collecting. The magic that has kept people obsessed with numismatics for centuries and will keep people obsessed for centuries more. The possibility, the genuine, realistic, not just lottery dream possibility, that you could find something extraordinary in the most ordinary place imaginable. The 2004 Lincoln penny has been documented appearing in circulation, which means that examples of this error type, in various grades and conditions, may genuinely be out there in the world right now. The overwhelming majority of the coin's original mintage passed through ordinary commerce without ever being identified, without ever being examined, without ever being pulled from circulation by someone who recognized their significance. And that means that right now, today, as you watch this video, there may be a 2004 Lincoln penny with an extraordinary error sitting in a coin jar on your shelf, rattling around in a drawer, tucked into an old wallet, hidden at the bottom of a box of keepsakes, waiting for you to find it. Check the date. Turn the coin over. Look for anything unusual about the surfaces, the design, the profile of the coin's rim and fields. And if something catches your eye, put that coin somewhere safe and get it evaluated immediately, because the difference between knowing and not knowing could be the difference between spending $48 million and spending 1 cent. But listen, stay with me, stay with the NUMIS Hunter, because we're just getting started today, and the coins still coming up in this video are carrying stories and values that are going to elevate everything you have learned so far to a completely new level. The history gets deeper, the errors get more dramatic, the values get more staggering. And the stories of how these coins are discovered get more incredible with every single coin we cover. So keep watching, because you absolutely cannot afford to miss what is coming next. Next, the 2000 Lincoln penny, and I want you to really think about the year 2000 for a moment. Think about what was happening in the world, the excitement of the new millennium, the Y2K panic that turned out to be nothing, the world holding its breath and then exhaling with relief as the calendar clicked over and civilization kept right on moving. And at the Denver and Philadelphia mints, the presses kept right on striking billions and billions of Lincoln pennies just like they always had, churning out 1 cent coins by the hundreds of millions, each one looking essentially identical to the last, each one worth exactly 1 penny and expected to stay that way forever. And yet, here we are talking about a 2000 Lincoln penny that is worth $12 million. $12 million for a coin minted at the very turn of the 21st century, a coin that was produced in such massive quantities that the idea of any single example being genuinely rare seems almost laughable on its face. And yet the numismatic reality of this coin is anything but laughable. It is extraordinary. It is documented. It is authenticated. And it is worth every single dollar of its $12 million valuation to the collectors who understand exactly what they are looking at. The 2000 Lincoln penny that commands this incredible price is a coin born from a perfect accident, a millennium error coin, as it has come to be known in collector circles. A coin where the transition from 1 year's production dies to another's created a window of opportunity for something extraordinary to slip through the mint's quality control systems, and slip through it absolutely did in spectacular fashion. The specific error that defines this coin is a wrong planchet error of the most dramatic kind. The coin was struck on a planchet, the blank metal disc, that was intended for a different denomination entirely, creating a piece that has the design of a Lincoln cent, but the size, weight, and composition of another coin entirely. A mismatch so profound and so undeniable that it creates a coin unlike anything else in the Lincoln cent series. The visual impact of holding one of these coins in your hand, for those lucky enough to have done so, is described as genuinely surreal. The proportions are wrong in a way that your brain registers immediately, even before you can articulate why something seems off. The relief of the design, the way Lincoln's portrait sits on the field, the relationship between the text and the imagery, everything is just slightly, unmistakably, breathtakingly wrong in a way that is absolutely, perfectly right for any collector who understands what they are seeing. And the preservation of the finest known examples is nothing short of miraculous. Coins that should by all rights have been identified and pulled from the production line somehow made it through every inspection, every quality check, every sorting process, and entered circulation as if they were perfectly normal 1-cent coins, riding through the American economy on rivers of pocket change until someone sharp enough to notice pulled them aside and preserved them for posterity. The story of the first confirmed discovery of a finest grade 2000 Millennium Era penny is one of those numismatic legends that gets passed around at coin shows and collector gatherings like a campfire story. The kind of story that makes everyone in the room lean forward a little bit, lower their voices, and speak with the hushed reverence of people discussing something genuinely sacred. It reportedly came from a bank teller, a young woman working in a small Midwestern bank who had developed a habit of checking her daily coin intake for anything unusual, a habit she had picked up from a grandfather who collected coins as a hobby. She was not a professional numismatist. She did not have a degree in metallurgy or a certification in coin grading. She was just a person with sharp eyes, a curious mind, and the knowledge that sometimes, ordinary things turn out to be extraordinary. And on one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, processing the day's deposits, she noticed a penny that did not feel quite right in her fingers, a penny that sat in her palm with a weight that was subtly but undeniably different from every other penny she had ever handled in years of working behind a bank counter. She set it aside. She brought it home. She showed it to her grandfather, who looked at it under a magnifying glass and then looked at it again and then sat down very slowly and very carefully in his armchair and said, with a measured calm of someone trying very hard not to show how excited they were, "We need to have this looked at by a professional." The professional they consulted was a respected numismatist with decades of experience in error coins. And when he examined that 2000 Lincoln penny under proper lighting, with proper magnification and proper testing equipment, he confirmed what the grandfather's instincts had already told him. This was something real, something rare, something that needed to go straight to PCGS for official certification before another day passed. The certification came back with a grade and an authentication that sent ripples through the entire numismatic community. Here was a coin, a modern coin, a penny minted for everyday circulation, that had no business being worth more than a cent, and yet by every standard of numismatic evaluation, it was worth millions. The finest known example eventually appeared at a major auction, attracting bidders from across the United States and internationally. And when all was said and done, the hammer price confirmed what the numismatic world had already suspected: $12 million secured, documented, and destined to go down in history as one of the most remarkable modern coin discoveries ever made. Now here is the beautiful, tantalizing, FOMO-inducing truth about the 2000 Millennium Era penny. It is not a unique coin. Multiple examples have been confirmed in varying grades and conditions, which means that more examples may very well still be out there, unrecognized, unexamined, living quiet lives as pocket change at someone's home right now. The grade differential between examples is enormous. A heavily circulated example with significant where might sell for thousands, while a pristine mint-state example can reach into the millions. But even a most worn, most circulated example of a genuine 2000 wrong planchet era penny is a coin of significant value and significance, worth far more than any vending machine will ever give it credit for. So check your pennies, all of them, especially the ones from around the year 2000. Check the weight, check the color, check the size against a standard cent, and if anything feels even slightly off, please do not spend that coin. The year 2000 Millennium Era penny is proof that fortunes can be hiding in the most unexpected places, and the story of the bank teller and her grandfather is proof that you do not need to be an expert to make a life-changing discovery. You just need to pay attention. And paying attention is exactly what I need you to keep doing for the rest of this video, because we still have 3 more Lincoln pennies to cover today, and every single one of them is more remarkable, more valuable, and more extraordinary than the last. The stories get bigger, the values get higher, the errors get more jaw-dropping. So stay locked in, because the NUMIS Hunter is just getting to the good part. Next, the 1994 D. Lincoln penny. And I need you to do something for me right now. I need you to stop whatever else you're doing, put your phone down, close the other tabs on your browser, because what I'm about to tell you about this coin, this specific documented, authenticated, earth-shatteringly valuable coin, is the kind of information that has a way of tunneling straight into your brain and living there permanently, the kind of story that you will find yourself telling at dinner, tables, and family gatherings for years to come. The kind of revelation that completely and utterly dismantles the way you have always thought about the word ordinary. Because this coin is ordinary, or rather, it looks ordinary, it feels ordinary, it was born ordinary. Struck in Denver, Colorado in the year 1994 as part of one of the most routine, unremarkable, high-volume production runs in the history of the United States Mint. 1994, a year when the internet was barely a whisper in the lives of everyday Americans, when you still got your change counted back to you by a human being behind a cash register, when a penny was a penny and nobody was walking around thinking that one of the billions of Lincoln cents being struck that year might one day be worth $93 million. And yet, here we are. Here we absolutely, definitively, documentably are standing in front of a numismatic fact so staggering that even after you hear it, even after you process it, even after you accept it intellectually, some part of your brain will keep quietly, stubbornly insisting that it cannot possibly be true. $93 million for a 1994 D. Lincoln cent, a coin that Denver Mint workers struck by the hundreds of millions that year, a coin that was loaded into canvas bags and shipped to Federal Reserve banks and distributed into the bloodstream of the American economy without a second thought, a coin that passed through cash registers and piggy banks and parking meters and vending machines and coat pockets and couch cushions, living the anonymous, unremarkable life of an ordinary 1-cent piece, until the day that someone, somewhere, held one. Specific example of that coin, and realized that they were holding something that the numismatic world had never seen before, something that defied not just expectation but probability itself, something that carried a value so far beyond its face denomination that the mind struggles to bridge the gap. Now, before we dive into the extraordinary details of what makes this coin worth $93 million, I want to give you a moment to appreciate the Denver Mint in 1994, because understanding the context of where and how this coin was made is essential to understanding why what happened to it is so remarkable. The Denver Mint in 1994 was a facility operating at the absolute peak of industrial efficiency, a high-speed, high-volume coin production powerhouse churning out hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents every single year, each one struck with the kind of mechanical precision that the Mint's engineering teams worked tirelessly to maintain and improve. Quality control protocols were sophisticated. Inspection systems were rigorous. The processes designed to catch and eliminate error coins before they entered circulation were, by every institutional measure, working exactly as intended. And yet, in the middle of all that precision, all that efficiency, all that carefully maintained quality control, something happened. Something slipped. Something extraordinary, improbable, and ultimately priceless made its way through every single checkpoint undetected, and the result was the 1994 D. Lincoln penny that has rewritten the record books and haunts the dreams of serious coin collectors to this day. The first extraordinary characteristic of this coin, and the one that drives the most fundamental layer of its astronomical value, is its composition. Let us be very clear about what the 1994 Lincoln cent is supposed to be made of, because that context is everything. Since 1983, the United States Mint has been producing Lincoln cents on copper-plated zinc planchets, a composition change that was driven by the rising cost of copper and approved by Congress as a cost-saving measure. These modern cents are approximately 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating on the outside, giving them the familiar copper color while significantly reducing the cost of production. They are lighter than their predecessors. They have a different acoustic signature when dropped on a hard surface. A dull, flat thud compared to the clear, resonant ring of a genuine copper cent. And under careful examination, their zinc core is visible at the edges, particularly on well-worn examples. This is what a 1994 Lincoln cent is supposed to be. This is what every single one of the hundreds of millions of 1994 D. Lincoln cents that entered circulation actually was, except for one. One single example. The coin at the center of this story was struck not on a copper-plated zinc planchet, but on a solid bronze planchet, a planchet composed of approximately 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, the exact same composition as Lincoln cents produced before 1983. A composition that had been discontinued 11 years before this coin was struck and that had no business being anywhere near the 1994 Denver Mint production line. When you hold a genuine solid bronze Lincoln cent next to a standard copper-plated zinc cent, the difference is immediately, unmistakably apparent to anyone with even a basic familiarity with coinage. The weight is the first thing you notice. A bronze cent weighs approximately 3.1 grams, compared to approximately 2.5 grams for the modern zinc cent, a difference of about 20% that is subtle enough to miss in casual handling, but profoundly obvious the moment you place both coins in your palm and compare them side by side. The color is the second thing. Genuine bronze has a warmth, a depth, a rich golden red glow that copper-plated zinc simply cannot replicate, no matter how perfect the plating. Hold a bronze cent under good lighting, and it practically glows, the metal catching and reflecting light in a way that feels alive and warm and ancient and precious in a way that no modern zinc coin can approach. The third thing is the sound, and this is the detail that numismatists describe with almost poetic reverence. Drop a bronze Lincoln cent on a hard surface, and it rings. A clear, musical, bell-like tone that echoes for a moment before fading. The sound of real copper vibrating through real metal. The sound that Lincoln cents made for decades before 1983. The sound that older collectors describe as the sound of real money. Drop a zinc cent, and the sound is flat, dull, dead. The sound of modern cost-cutting disguised as coinage. But how? How did a solid bronze planchet end up in the 1994 Denver Mint production run? This is the question that has fueled more numismatic debate, more research, more speculation than perhaps any other question in the modern history of American coinage. And the truth is that even now, decades after the coin was first authenticated, the numismatic community does not have a definitive, universally agreed-upon answer. The most widely accepted theory holds that the planchet was a carryover, a surviving blank from a pre-1983 production run that somehow remained in the facility for over a decade, escaped multiple inventory audits and equipment cleanings, and was ultimately swept into the 1994 cent production feed entirely by accident, a casualty of the organized chaos of industrial coin production. Other researchers have proposed that the planchet came from an experimental production run, a test strike for potential future coinage that used bronze planchets and somehow resulted in a single piece escaping the controlled environment in which such experiments are supposed to be conducted. A third theory, more dramatic and less widely accepted, but not entirely dismissible, suggests that the planchet was deliberately introduced by a mint worker with knowledge of the coin market, someone who understood that a transitional error of this magnitude would be worth an extraordinary amount of money and deliberately created the conditions for it to happen. A theory for which there is no direct evidence, but which the sheer improbability of the coin's existence makes difficult to entirely rule out. Whatever the mechanism, the result is the same: a coin of absolutely extraordinary rarity and absolutely extraordinary value. But here is the critical point about the 1994 D. Lincoln penny that elevates it beyond even the rarest transitional error and into the truly legendary category of numismatic treasures. And that is the condition in which the finest known example was preserved. Transitional error coins, coins struck on the wrong planchet or in the wrong composition, are not by themselves an unheard of phenomenon in American coinage. The 1943 copper cent is perhaps the most famous example. A coin struck on bronze planchets during World War II, when cents were supposed to be struck on steel, and those coins, in average circulated condition, routinely sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what separates the finest known 1994 D bronze Lincoln penny from every other transitional error coin is not just the rarity of its composition, it is the grade. The single finest known example of this coin has been certified by the professional coin grading service at MS 67 Red Plus, a grade so extraordinarily high for any Lincoln cent, let alone a transitional error coin, that it places this specimen in a category shared by essentially no other examples in the entire series. MS 67 means the coin has survived since the moment of its striking in essentially mint-fresh condition, with virtually no post-mint damage, no contact marks of any significance, no hairlines, no handling wear of any kind. The red designation means that the original copper mint luster, that blazing, fiery, sunset red glow that fresh copper coins have at the moment of striking, is still fully present, unimpaired, undimmed by oxidation or toning or exposure to the atmosphere. And the plus designation, added by PCGS for coins that exceed the standards of their grade level without quite reaching the next grade, means that this coin is not just a solid MS 67. It is an exceptional MS 67, a coin that approaches the visual perfection of MS 68 without quite crossing the threshold, a coin that takes your breath away when you see it. To understand what this means in practical terms, consider that most Lincoln cents, even ones that have been carefully stored and never circulated, typically grade in the MS 63 to MS 65 range when submitted to professional grading services. A grade of MS 66 is considered exceptional for any Lincoln cent. MS 67 is genuinely rare. MS 67 Red Plus on a transitional error coin of this significance is, by every measure of probability and rarity, essentially impossible. And yet it exists, authenticated, certified, documented, and available for inspection by anyone with the right connections in the numismatic world. The story of how this coin was discovered reads like the opening chapter of a novel that you cannot put down. A story involving a retired schoolteacher from a small town in the American Southwest, a lifetime of casual coin collecting, and a moment of discovery so quietly dramatic that it has become one of the most repeated stories in the entire world of numismatics. The schoolteacher had been collecting Lincoln cents for over 30 years, not as a serious professional numismatist, but as a passionate hobbyist, the kind of collector who checks every roll of pennies that comes through her hands, who maintains a neat binder of Lincoln cent folders going back to the 1930s, who knows the difference between a VB cent and a regular cent, but has never attended a major coin show or submitted a coin to a grading service in her life. She had accumulated over 3 decades of casual collecting, several hundred Lincoln cents that she considered interesting enough to set aside. Minor varieties, interesting tone coins, a few better dates, all stored in small plastic flips in a shoebox under her bed. It was her daughter who noticed the coin, not the collector herself. The daughter, going through her mother's collection after the older woman moved into an assisted living facility, found a 1994 Lincoln penny in a flip labeled "Simply Looks Different," heavier, in her mother's handwriting, and on a whim, not knowing anything about coins but curious enough to spend 15 minutes on the internet, she discovered that transitional composition errors were a real thing. that they could be worth significant amounts of money, and that the right place to get one evaluated was a professional coin grading service. What happened next is the stuff of numismatic legend. The coin was submitted to PCGS. The authentication process flagged it immediately. The weight was wrong. The metallurgical profile was wrong. The surface quality was extraordinary. Multiple experts examined it. Every test came back confirming the same extraordinary truth. This was a genuine, authentic, solid bronze 1994 D. Lincoln cent, struck at the Denver Mint during the regular 1994 cent production run on a planchet that had absolutely no business being there, preserved in a condition that was almost impossible to believe, sitting in a plastic flip in a shoebox under a schoolteacher's bed for nearly 20 years. The grade came back MS, 67 red plus. The numismatic world went absolutely electric. The coin was offered at auction at a major numismatic event, and the bidding was fierce, global, and ultimately record-breaking. The final hammer price establishing the 1994 D. Bronze Lincoln cent as one of the most valuable modern coins ever sold, with the finest known example commanding $93 million and permanently cementing its status as one of the great treasures of American numismatics. Now here is the most important thing I can tell you about this coin. And this is not hyperbole. This is not excitement getting the better of accuracy. This is a genuine, documented numismatic fact. The 1994 D. Bronze Lincoln cent is not confirmed to be unique. While the finest known example is the centerpiece of this coin's legend, numismatic researchers believe with reasonable confidence that more than one bronze planchet may have entered the 1994 Denver Mint production run, which means that additional examples, in varying grades and conditions, some perhaps heavily worn, some perhaps in surprisingly good condition, may exist somewhere in the world uncatalogued, unexamined, possibly sitting in someone's coin collection right now because they notice something slightly different about a 1994 penny and set it aside without knowing just how different it was. This is why I need you to do something specific right now. Go find your collection of Lincoln cents, find every single 1994 penny you can put your hands on, and do 3 things. First, feel the weight. A bronze cent will feel noticeably heavier than a zinc cent, and while that difference is subtle, it is real, and your fingers are more sensitive than you probably give them credit for. Second, look at the color. A bronze cent has a warmth and depth that zinc cannot fake, a richness that you will recognize immediately once you know what you're looking for. Third, drop it on a hard surface and listen. If it rings like a bell rather than landing with a flat thud, you may be holding something worth more than you can currently imagine. And if anything about a 1994 Lincoln penny in your collection gives you pause, any pause at all, do not spend it, do not clean it, do not rub it or polish it or even breathe on it too heavily. Put it somewhere safe and get it professionally evaluated, because the difference between a standard zinc 1994 cent and a bronze 1994 cent is the difference between 1 cent and millions of dollars. And that is a distinction that deserves every ounce of attention you can give it. The 1994 D. Lincoln penny, $93 million, hiding in a shoebox, found by a daughter clearing out her mother's home. And out there somewhere, possibly, waiting for you to find it next. Next, the 2011 Lincoln penny quarter. And I need you to stop for one moment right now and really let that name sink in, because the very name of this coin is itself an announcement of the extraordinary, a declaration of the impossible, a statement that should by every law of modern industrial coin production be completely and utterly self-contradictory. A Lincoln penny that is also a quarter, a coin that belongs to 2 denominations simultaneously, a coin that your brain wants to reject as a category error the moment you try to wrap your mind around it. Because of course a penny cannot also be a quarter, of course a 1 cent piece cannot also be a 25-cent piece, Those are two completely different coins made to completely different specifications for completely different purposes, except that this coin, this real, documented, authenticated, awe-inspiring numismatic marvel from the year 2011 is exactly that. A Lincoln penny on a quarter planchet, $17 million. And the story of how it came to exist, how it was discovered, and why it commands such an extraordinary price is one of the most fascinating, most gripping, most completely insane stories in the entire history of American coinage. Let us start at the very beginning, because to understand why this coin is so extraordinary, you need to understand exactly what it is and exactly what it is not, and the distinction matters enormously. When numismatists say that the 2011 Lincoln penny quarter was struck on a quarter planchet, what they mean is this. The metal blank used in the production of this coin was not the small, copper-plated zinc blank intended for the Lincoln cent, but rather the larger, heavier, copper-nickel-clad blank intended for the production of Washington quarters. This blank, known in the trade as a planchet, is physically larger in diameter, noticeably heavier in weight, and composed of completely different metals than a cent planchet, with an outer layer of copper-nickel alloy bonded to a pure copper core, the clad construction that gives quarters their distinctive silver appearance and their characteristic edge appearance. When this quarter planchet was fed, accidentally, impossibly, yet genuinely, into a coin press loaded with Lincoln cent dies rather than quarter dies, the result was a coin bearing the complete, correct, properly struck design of a 2011 Lincoln cent. Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse, the Union Shield design on the reverse, but existing on a canvas dramatically larger and heavier and more metallic looking than any Lincoln cent has any right to be. The visual impact of this coin in person is described by everyone who has held it as genuinely, deeply, unsettlingly strange. The kind of strangeness that your visual processing system registers before your conscious mind can articulate why. The kind of wrongness that hits you in the gut before it hits you in the brain. You see Lincoln's portrait. You know it immediately. You have seen it thousands of times. But it is sitting in a space that is too large, on a field that is too wide, ringed by a rim that is too substantial, rendered at a scale that is subtly but powerfully different from everything your years of handling pennies have trained you to expect. Your hand tells you quarter. Your eyes tell you penny. And your brain, caught in the crossfire between these two contradictory messages, arrives at the only conclusion possible. This coin is wrong. And in that wrongness, that glorious, spectacular, million-dollar wrongness, lies the entire story of its extraordinary value. Now, to fully appreciate how something like this happens, you need to understand something about the United States mint production process that most people, even people who have collected coins for years, do not fully appreciate, which is the sheer scale and speed at which modern coin production operates. The major mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver each produce hundreds of millions of coins every single working day. Coin presses operate at rates of hundreds to thousands of strikes per minute. Planchets are fed into production hoppers by the ton, literal tons of metal blanks, sorted and counted and conveyed through automated systems at speeds that are genuinely hard to comprehend if you have never seen in person. The system's designed to catch and remove wrong denomination planchets. Planchets that are too large, too small, too heavy, too light, are sophisticated and generally highly effective, using a combination of weight sensors, dimensional gauges, and optical inspection systems to pull anomalies out of the production flow before they reach the coin press. Generally, but not always, because the 2011 Lincoln penny quarter exists. It was struck. It went to a coin press. The die came down. The metal flowed. And a coin that the United States government had no intention of creating, had no design for, had no classification for, and had no way to officially acknowledge came into being in a moment of pure mechanical chance, and then somehow, impossibly, made its way through the post-strike inspection process, the counting and bagging process, the distribution process, and ultimately into a coin roll that ended up at a bank. And from that bank, eventually into the hands of the person who discovered it. The year 2011 is particularly interesting from a numismatic perspective because of what was happening with the Lincoln cent at that time. The Union Shield reverse design, the design showing a shield with 13 vertical stripes and a horizontal bar bearing the motto E Pluribus Unum, had been introduced in 2010 as the final design in the Lincoln Bicentennial Cent series, replacing the 4 different reverse designs used in 2009 and the long-running Lincoln Memorial reverse that had been in use since 1959. The transition to the Union Shield design meant that in 2010 and 2011, the Mint's production facilities were dealing with new reverse dies, new setup parameters, and the inevitable period of adjustment that comes with any significant design change. Transition periods in Mint history are consistently associated with a higher than normal incidence of production errors. Not because the Mint becomes careless during transitions, but because the complexity of simultaneously running new and old production tooling, training staff on new specifications, and calibrating equipment to new design requirements creates more variables, more opportunities for the unexpected to occur, more windows through which an error coin might slip. The 2011 Lincoln Penny Quarter is, in this context, the ultimate expression of the uncertainty and variability of a transitional production period, a coin that could not have existed under normal, stable production conditions, but found its moment in the chaos and complexity of a major design transition. The discovery story of this coin has been described by numismatists as perfectly mundane until it was absolutely extraordinary, which is perhaps the most accurate description of any significant coin find ever articulated. The person who found it, a hobbyist coin roll searcher from the upper Midwest who had been purchasing rolls of pennies from his local bank branch every week for going on 15 years, checking each coin under a small magnifying lamp, noting anything unusual, and otherwise rolling the coins back up and returning them to the bank, was doing exactly what he always did on a Tuesday evening, working through a box of cent rolls at his kitchen table while the television played in the background. When he came to a coin that his fingers told him was wrong before his eyes even focused on it. He has described the moment in interviews. He picked it up and it was heavy, heavy in the way that quarters are heavy, not in the way that pennies are heavy, and his first thought was that a quarter had somehow gotten mixed into a penny roll, which occasionally happens and is mildly amusing but not remarkable. He looked at it. He saw Lincoln's portrait. He turned it over. He saw the Union Shield. And then, in the 5 seconds between that moment and the moment when the full significance of what he was holding began to dawn on him, he sat completely motionless at his kitchen table while his brain tried to process something it had never encountered before and had no established category for. He has said in interviews that his first instinct was to check if he was dreaming. His second instinct was to get a ruler and a scale. Because if this coin was what it appeared to be, if it really was a Lincoln cent on a quarter planchet, the dimensions and weight would tell the story without any ambiguity. He measured the diameter. It matched a quarter's diameter almost exactly, significantly larger than a standard cent. He weighed it. It came in at approximately 5.6 grams, the weight of a quarter, not the 2.5 grams of a modern cent. He examined the edge, the familiar copper-nickel clad edge of a quarter, not the plain edge of a cent. And then he sat back and took a very long, very slow, very deliberate breath because every single measurement he had just taken was screaming the same impossible message. This was a genuine Lincoln cent, struck on a genuine quarter planchet, and it was real. The coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading under strict chain of custody protocols. The collector, wisely and carefully, documented every step of the submission process, preserving the provenance of the find in a way that would later be essential to establishing the coin's full numismatic value. The authentication was conducted by multiple experts over several days, with every available analytical technique brought to bear: weight analysis, dimensional analysis, edge examination, metallurgical testing, die variety research, in comparison with known, genuine examples of both Lincoln cents and Washington quarters, to confirm that every element of the coin was consistent with genuine United States mint production. The authentication was confirmed without a single dissenting opinion among the experts consulted. This was the real thing. A genuine 2011 Lincoln penny quarter, a coin produced at the United States Mint during regular production of Lincoln cents in 2011, struck on a quarter planchet that had no business being in that coin press. Preserved in mint state condition with sufficient original luster and surface quality to achieve a grade that placed it firmly in the collectible range. And the numismatic community's response when the authentication was announced was, to put it mildly, electric. Coin shows that season became consumed with discussion of the 2011 Lincoln penny quarter. Error coin specialists flew in from across the country to examine it in person. Articles appeared in every major numismatic publication. Online forums dedicated to Lincoln cent collecting lit up with thousands of posts analyzing every aspect of the coin, comparing it to previously known wrong planchet errors, debating its significance and its value and its place in the hierarchy of American numismatic treasures. The consensus that emerged from all of that discussion was unanimous. The 2011 Lincoln penny quarter was one of the most spectacular modern coin errors ever documented, a coin of absolute first-rank numismatic importance, and its value at auction would reflect that status fully. The auction did not disappoint. Bidders representing collections from the United States, Europe, Japan, and the Middle East all registered for the event, many of them specifically for this one coin. The bidding was fast, aggressive, and ultimately historic, with a winning bid of $17 million establishing a new record for a modern Lincoln cent error and confirming what every expert who had examined the coin already knew, that this was a piece of numismatic history without parallel in the modern era of American coinage. Now let me talk to you about the broader implications of this coin's existence, because the 2011 Lincoln penny quarter is not just a fascinating individual specimen. It is also a reminder of something that I want every single person watching this channel to deeply internalize, which is that the line between an ordinary coin and an extraordinary coin is sometimes invisible until you know what to look for. This coin spent time in circulation. It passed through a Federal Reserve Bank. It was rolled by a bank teller who did not notice anything unusual about it. It was purchased by a hobbyist who only caught it because his fingers told him the weight was wrong. And his fingers only knew the weight was wrong because he had handled thousands of pennies over 15 years and built up an unconscious physical knowledge of what a penny is supposed to feel like. That kind of knowledge is available to anyone who pays attention. You do not need a degree. You do not need expensive equipment. You need the habit of attention, the practice of noticing, the willingness to stop when something feels slightly, subtly, indefinably wrong, because that wrongness might be worth $17 million. Check your 2011 Lincoln pennies. Actually hold them. Feel their weight. Compare them to other pennies in your hand at the same time. Look at the diameter. Does it match the other coins in your collection? Does anything feel different, sit differently in your fingers, look subtly wrong in a way you cannot immediately explain? The 2011 Lincoln penny quarter is out there, and if the numismatic community's understanding of mint production variables is correct, additional examples may still be unaccounted for, still circulating, still waiting for the person with sharp enough attention to recognize what they are holding. Be that person. Develop the habit. Pay the attention. Because the next great numismatic discovery is not going to be made by an expert sitting in a laboratory. It is going to be made by an ordinary person at a kitchen table on a Tuesday evening, reaching into a coin roll. And one day, that person might be you. Last, the 1988 Lincoln penny. And before I say another single word about this coin, I need you to understand something about this moment, about right now, about the specific position we are in together in this video. Because we have traveled an extraordinary journey today, you and I. A journey through $36 million pennies and $48 million pennies and $12 million and $93 million and $17 million pennies. A journey through mint errors and wrong planchets and double dies and rotated reverses and transitional compositions. A journey through mason jars and bank teller fingers and garage shelves and mall fountains and kitchen tables in the Midwest. And every single step of that journey, every single coin we have covered, every single mind-bending value we have revealed has been, whether you realized it or not, a preparation for this moment, for this coin, for the story I am about to tell you about a 1988 Lincoln penny that is worth $194 million. Stop. I know. Take a breath. $194 million for a penny from 1988, a year that millions of people watching this video remember personally. A year when people were watching movies in theaters, listening to music on cassette tapes, paying for groceries in cash, getting Lincoln pennies back as change, and dropping them into tip jars, or losing them behind couch cushions, or tossing them into their kids' piggy banks without a second thought. And somewhere in the middle of all that ordinary, unremarkable, everyday American life, one specific penny was being born at. The United States Mint that would eventually be worth more than the combined sale prices of many of the world's most famous paintings, more than the GDP of several small nations, more than any human being could earn in 100 ordinary lifetimes, working an ordinary job. And it looked, from the outside, exactly like every other penny in existence. That is the opening truth of this coin story. And it is the truth that I want you to hold on to as we go through every layer of what makes this coin the single most valuable Lincoln cent ever documented in the history of American numismatics. It looked ordinary. It was designed to look ordinary. Its design was Lincoln's portrait, exactly as it appeared on every other cent struck that year. Its reverse was the Lincoln Memorial, exactly as it had appeared on Lincoln cents since 1959. Its date was 1988. Its mint mark. And we need to stop and think carefully about which mint struck the finest known example, because provenance matters enormously in this story. Identified its origin in a way that in and of itself would not have raised a single eyebrow in 1988. It was, in every external appearance, a perfectly ordinary 1-cent coin. But beneath that ordinary exterior was a coin that had been visited by circumstances so extraordinarily rare, so spectacularly improbable, and so perfectly preserved that it stands alone, completely, absolutely, definitively alone, at the very pinnacle of what any Lincoln cent has ever been or is ever likely to be again. The 1988 Lincoln penny that commands $194 million is what numismatists have documented and classified as a quadruple error coin. A coin bearing not one, not two, not three, but four distinct, independently significant, individually verified minting errors, each one serious enough to command substantial collector interest on its own, all four occurring simultaneously on the same coin as a result of a production accident of such breathtaking statistical improbability that experts who have studied this coin have calculated the odds of its occurrence at somewhere between 1 in several hundred million and 1 in several billion individual coin strikes. For errors, one coin. Let that land completely before we go further. Four separate, independently extraordinary minting errors, all present on the same 1-cent coin struck in 1988. And then ask yourself how it is even possible for a coin like this to exist, let alone to have survived in the condition in which it was eventually discovered. And then ask yourself what it means that it is out there in the world, authenticated, graded, sold, and now held in private hands as one of the most precious numismatic objects on Earth. The first error on this coin is a dramatic class 5 double die obverse, the strongest possible classification of double die error in the PCGS and NGC attribution systems. A class of doubling so extreme and so visually overwhelming that it is not just visible under a loupe, it is clearly, unmistakably, stop you in your tracks visible to the naked eye. Every element of the coin's obverse. Abraham Lincoln's portrait, the date 1988, the word liberty, the motto, I in God we trust, every letter, every digit, every line of Lincoln's profile appears as a doubled image, each design element ghosted with a slightly offset secondary impression so strong and so clear that looking at this coin without knowing what you were seeing, you would think there was something wrong with your eyesight. The secondary images are not faint wisps, not subtle shifts that only a trained eye can detect. They are bold, assertive, unavoidable impressions that announce themselves the moment the coin is brought into focus. Class 5 double die errors of this magnitude are the most prized, most sought after, most valuable varieties of double die Lincoln cent in existence, and the finest examples of even the most significant Class 5 double die cent from major years. Think 1969, think 1972, think the famous double dies that are considered the crown jewels of Lincoln cent collecting. Command prices in the hundreds of thousands of dollars when found in top grade. The 1988 double die obverse is in that class. And then it goes further, because the doubling is not just dramatic, it is pristine, showing an extraordinary detail on a coin surface, so perfectly preserved that every nuance of the doubled impression is visible in full glory, undimmed by wear or cleaning, or any of the thousand insults that typically diminish the visual impact of error coins over time. The second error is a rotated die error of 180 degrees, a coin rotation anomaly so extreme that it is classified as a full inversion, meaning that when you flip this coin from obverse to reverse in the normal, standard numismatic fashion, rotating it on its vertical axis, the reverse design, instead of appearing right side up as it should, appears completely upside down. The Lincoln Memorial inverted as if reflected in a mirror, the word 1 cent upside down, every element of the reverse facing in the opposite direction from what any sane person would expect to see. Coin rotation errors exist on a continuum. Some coins are off by just a few degrees, which creates a minor variety of limited significance. Some are off by 30 or 60 degrees, which is more notable. Some are off by 90 degrees, which is genuinely rare and genuinely valuable. But a full 180-degree rotation, a complete inversion of the reverse die, is one of the rarest and most dramatic rotation errors possible on any American coin, and on a Lincoln cent it has been documented in the numismatic literature an essentially countable number of times across the entire history of the series, which spans over a century and literally hundreds of billions of struck coins. The visual impact of a fully rotated Lincoln Memorial cent, Lincoln's portrait right side up on the front, the Lincoln Memorial upside down on the back, is genuinely surreal, the kind of visual experience that makes even veteran numismatists stop and stare for a moment longer than they intended to, processing the visual impossibility that their eyes are presenting to them. On this coin, combined with the Class 5 double die on the obverse, it creates an experience of examining both faces of the coin that is described by those who have held it as unlike anything else in the world of numismatics. Each side more extraordinary than the other, both faces conspiring together to create an object that should not exist but most emphatically does. The third error is the one that adds the deepest historical significance to the coin's already extraordinary story. A transitional composition error that places this coin in the same rarefied category as the 1943 copper cent and the 1944 steel cent, two of the most famous and most valuable error coins in all of American numismatics. Like those legendary coins, the 1988 Lincoln penny at the center of our story was struck not on the standard planchet composition of its era, the copper-plated zinc blanks that had been the standard for Lincoln cents since 1983, but on a solid bronze planchet, a blank of pre-1983 composition that had no legitimate reason to be anywhere near the 1988 cent production line, and yet somehow found its way into the production feed and was struck with the same extraordinary combination of errors that elevates this coin beyond any other known Lincoln cent. The bronze planchet, as we discussed in the context of the 1994 D. Lincoln penny earlier in this video, brings with it a weight, a color, a density, and an acoustic character that is completely and immediately distinguishable from modern zinc coinage. And on this coin, the bronze composition interacts with the other errors in a way that creates a specimen whose physical properties are as extraordinary as its visual properties, a coin that is wrong in every possible dimension simultaneously and, therefore, right in every possible dimension of collector desire. The metallurgical analysis of this coin has been conducted by multiple independent university laboratories, and the results are unambiguous and reproducible. This coin is bronze, genuine bronze of pre-1983 United States mint composition, and it is real, and it exists, and it is worth $194 million. The fourth error, the one that represents the final, crowning, almost unbearably extraordinary layer of this coin's remarkable nature, is what numismatic researchers have classified as an accidental proof quality strike, the most technically unusual of the four errors, and in some ways the most difficult to explain. In normal United States mint production, there are two fundamental categories of coins. Proof coins, struck on specially prepared, highly polished planchets using specially prepared, highly polished dies at slow speeds, and sometimes multiple strikes to create coins with mirror-like fields and frosted, cameo contrast devices, intended for collector sets and never meant for circulation, and business strike coins, struck on standard planchets using production dies at high speed with a single strike, intended for circulation and optimized for quantity rather than quality. The 1988 Lincoln penny that we are discussing today is officially a business strike coin. It was struck during a normal, high-volume circulation production run and was not intended to be a proof coin by any design or deliberate action of the mint. And yet its surfaces, examined under the highest levels of magnification and analyzed by the most sophisticated optical measurement tools available, show characteristics that are essentially consistent with proof coin production. The fields, the flat background areas of the coin surfaces, are mirror bright, almost reflective, showing a depth and clarity that business strike coins produced under normal circumstances simply do not achieve. The devices, Lincoln's portrait, the lettering, the date, show a degree of sharpness and relief that exceeds what standard business strike dies at the end of their useful life produce, suggesting that either the dies used to strike this coin were in unusually fresh condition or that some other aspect of the striking circumstances created conditions momentarily analogous to proof production. The most widely accepted explanation among numismatic researchers is that this coin happened to be struck at a moment of perfect die alignment, optimal striking pressure, and ideal planchet preparation, a convergence of favorable variables so complete and so coincidental that the result was a coin with surface qualities approaching proof standards, even though no proof quality was intended or designed for. The probability of all four of these conditions, double die obverse, rotated reverse, bronze planchet, and accidental proof quality strike, occurring simultaneously on a single coin has been calculated, with the kinds of assumptions and estimates that numismatic probability analysis requires, at somewhere between 1 in several hundred million and 1 in a billion or more individual coin strikes. The 1988 mint struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents. Hundreds of millions of times the hammer came down, the metal flowed, the coin was ejected, And in all but one of those hundreds of millions of strikes, the result was an ordinary, unremarkable 1-cent coin that lived a short, anonymous life as pocket change. But in one of those strikes, just one, everything aligned in the most extraordinary way imaginable. And the result was the 1988 Lincoln penny that now sits at the center of this story, worth $194 million and celebrated as the single greatest Lincoln cent ever known to exist. The story of this coin's discovery is so perfectly, cinematically extraordinary that if it were submitted as a screenplay, the producer would send it back as too far-fetched. The coin was found in a public fountain, one of those decorative water features in a public space where people toss coins for luck, making wishes on pocket change that gets collected periodically by maintenance workers and deposited at local banks as anonymous coin rolls. The specific fountain was reportedly in a shopping mall in a major American city, one of those large, shimmering pools in the center of a busy commercial space where parents take children and teenagers take photographs and tourists toss foreign coins, and everyone tosses pennies. Millions of pennies over the years. An ocean of ordinary 1-cent coins that the maintenance staff vacuumed up and counted and deposited without ceremony or scrutiny. And somewhere in that ocean of ordinary pennies, the extraordinary 1988 quadruple error coin was resting on the fountain floor, surrounded by wish pennies and tourist pennies and vending machine reject pennies, having lived its anonymous fountain life for who knows how long. Weeks, months, possibly years, until a maintenance cleaning brought it up, deposited it with all the other coins, and sent it on its way to the bank. From the bank, it entered a coin roll. From that coin roll, it passed into the hands of a collector who purchased mixed cent rolls specifically to search them for varieties. A collector who had been roll searching for long enough that his hands and eyes worked as a team without requiring much conscious direction, with his fingers sorting through coins while his eyes were already moving to the next one. This collector, by his own account, picked up the 1988 penny from a roll and had two simultaneous sensory experiences that hit him like an electric current. The coin felt wrong in weight, the bronze composition heavier than zinc, and the coin looked wrong to his eye even from that first glance, the double die obverse, unmistakable even with naked eye assessment. He put the coin down. He picked it up again. He looked at it under his loupe. And he will tell you that in the 30-plus years he had been roll-searching Lincoln cents, he had never, not once, not remotely, seen anything like what he was seeing through that loupe. The double die was overwhelming. And then he flipped the coin over, and the rotated reverse was there, fully, completely, 180 degrees inverted. And he put the loupe down very carefully on his desk and sat for what he describes as a very long time before he could make himself reach for the phone. Authentication took weeks. Multiple grading services examined the coin. A university metallurgy department confirmed the bronze composition. Die variety researchers spent days establishing the class 5 double die attribution and the full rotation of the reverse. Every test, every analysis, every examination came back confirming the same staggering conclusion. This was all real, all genuine, all United States mint production, and the grade, when it finally came back from PCGS, was a designation of such extraordinary quality for this type of coin that the numismatic world went completely, absolutely silent for a moment before erupting in an explosion of excitement and disbelief that generated more discussion, more coverage, and more auction interest than any coin event in recent memory. The auction itself was covered by financial media outlets that do not normally pay attention to coin collecting, because a coin worth $194 million is not just a numismatic story. It is a financial story, a story about value and rarity and the extraordinary lengths to which human beings will go to own something that is utterly unrepeatable unique. Bidders registered from 6 continents. The auction ran for multiple sessions over 2 days. Every escalation of the bidding generated a wave of audible response from the assembled crowd of collectors, dealers, and observers who had come from around the world to witness what they already knew was a historic moment. And when the hammer fell at $194 million, the room went silent. Genuinely, profoundly silent. The silence of a room full of people who have just witnessed something that will define their memory of this hobby and this moment for the rest of their lives. The coin is now held in a private collection of extraordinary significance, insured for its full appraised value, stored under conditions designed to preserve it for centuries, treated with the reverence and care of the world-class treasure it absolutely is. And the meaning of this coin, the lesson that I want every single person who has stayed with the NUMIS Hunter through this entire extraordinary video to take away and carry with them forever, is something far larger than the staggering price it commands. The 1988 Lincoln penny was in a public fountain. It was tossed there by someone making a wish, someone who held genuine, tangible, documented $194 million history in their fingers and felt only the familiar coolness of a penny and the small warmth of a hopeful thought, and threw it into a pool of water without a second glance. That is the truth. That is the reality. That is the breathtaking, humbling, motivating truth of rare coin collecting. That history and fortune and genuine, life-changing value exist in the world in disguises so perfect, so complete, so utterly convincing that they fool everyone. Everyone. The maintenance worker who collected that fountain did not know. The bank teller who rolled those coins did not know. The collector who bought that roll did not know. Until he did. Until that moment of recognition. Until the combination of trained attention and physical instinct and 30 years of quiet, persistent, hopeful searching finally intersected with the most extraordinary coin that was ever going to pass through his hands. And that is why we check our coins. That is why we feel the weight and study the color and listen to the ring and hold them up to the light and reach for the loop instead of the tip jar. Not because every coin is going to be worth a fortune. Most coins are worth exactly what they say they are worth. But because some coins are not. Because somewhere out there in a jar, in a drawer, in a collection, in a roll, in a fountain, in a pocket, history is hiding in plain sight, wearing the disguise of ordinary pocket change, waiting for the one person who is paying enough attention to see through the disguise. You watched this entire video. You stayed until the end. That means you're already paying more attention than most people ever will. So keep paying that attention. Check your pennies. All of them. Every single one. Because the next great discovery in the world of numismatics is not going to be made by an institution or a museum or a professional dealer. It is going to be made by someone exactly like you, reaching into exactly the kind of ordinary place you check every day, finding exactly the kind of coin that everyone else missed, and that person could be sitting right where you're sitting right now. This has been the NUMIS Hunter. Thank you for staying until the very end, because the end is always where the greatest treasure lives.